All right, so we're going to go over the Nasdaq 100 and the SP 500, very short, sweet, to the point. Go over what happened on the day and overall the targets that we were looking at, what went wrong, and ultimately where we are right now. Before we get into that, to ask you to consider two things: liking and subscribing. It helps out the channel tremendously, and I'm posting videos every single day, so you are up to date. Now, going into today, I anticipated downside, and you were getting that downside based on Snapchat earnings, and then everything took a turn for the worst, and he started bouncing, and maybe that was bullish for you if you were in calls, right? So let's talk about what happened and ultimately where we're going from here. This, in my opinion, is what moved us, and I posted this on Twitter so everyone can see. Basically, if you don't know, there was a big discrepancy in what happened in the currency market with the US dollar and the Japanese yen. If you don't know, if we go look at this chart really quick, we saw some crazy behavior, specifically with the dollar tanking in compared to the yen. We've seen this happen with the Chinese yuan. What happened a few days and weeks ago as well. We've seen it happen with the UK and what's happening with the pound. We've seen this happen continuously, and it's the same overall trend. What they're doing is these economies get into shambles, they get into a really big issue, whether they're quote unquote defaulting, whether they're facing big challenges and hurdles to face over the next few weeks. What they do to kind of stimulate their markets, unfortunately, it's something that the United States cannot do right now because we've basically used all of our tools almost. But if you look at these overall markets, what they do is they sell the dollar and they buy back their bonds, buy back their yields. And what happens? It stabilizes them, helps with their economy. It stimulates them, if you will, to get them out of that big issue. Now, it's a short-term quick fix on the markets, and it's generally a tool used via monetary policy to help these overall markets, right? That's the big general census of what's happened here. Now, it's not the first time Japan has done this, right? They've done this before. So I want to highlight this so people know this has happened. China did it, right? These are all things to know, okay? Very, very important. What's important to know, though, is that this is the first time they've been doing this in decades, in 20 years, right? No one usually does this. China, not really a big surprise from them, but the UK, Japan, some of our allies, right? Their economies have not been in danger like this. That's the major concern here. So as we look at these charts, I want you to understand a few things, and it's something that I've been really nailing home over the past few weeks, right? We are looking, one, I understand short-term matters, right? And I was wrong on my short-term. I want to be really clear about that. I was wrong on my short-term outlook. However, my long-term outlook still remains the same, and there's going to be some key things we need to watch to see if that changes, okay? We're going to talk about that here in the video, and we're going to get to that right now. Now, as we look at this, I want to just bring you over here really quick to Trend Spider. We're going to go over a few things really quick. Actually, I'm going to go to the daily, bring up a broad viewpoint. If we look at the daily, again, I like to do this first so we can still see what's happening. Before anyone says we're crazy bullish, we're going to the moon, whatever it may be, I like to do this so we can come back to reality. If we ultimately look where we are at right now, I want to delete these areas really quick so you can actually see this maybe a little bit more clearly. I'm going to delete that, and delete that. I wanted to show you where you are trending right now. If you really look at what's happening with the market, you are trending at your previous lows. Okay, so that's the first thing to establish where we're at right now. We are trending on the Nasdaq, on SPY, whatever it may be you're looking at. You are trending at your previous 52-week lows that we established in June. Okay, step number two. If we look at previous bounces, it's been a little bit more volatile, if you will, from these bottoms. We're definitely stagnating, and it looks a little bit like a flag here on the daily. Okay, I want to make that really clear. You can see roughly that you are flagging. Okay, this is a continuation pattern towards the downside. Make that really clear. Okay, so we're quote unquote flagging on the daily. We're trending at previous lows, but you are pushing up right now. You had a really great day. I'm going to go over volume. Volume was fantastic today, but that's what's happening. Now, I'm going to make it really clear right now as well. I have not added any of my longer term positions yet. I still have just a few of my Q puts. That's about it. Nothing really else, right? Nothing else. I've been really trying to sit on my hands lately, right? Until we get some confirmation, some real bad news that's going to push us down. But as we look at this as well, I want to show you the trend lines, right? I like using this because it just uses their little algo and it makes it really quick and perfect, right? And there's no human error. As we look here, right, I'm going to get rid of these right here as well. Just throw those down so you can't see them. We are bouncing off this trend line we mentioned yesterday, which you broke above. And this is on the daily chart, and you're kind of pushing up to the next level, which is around that target of the higher level, of kind of the high bounce, which is up to about the 11.5 to 11.6 range, okay? So we're still sitting there. We're still, it's still interesting where we're at. Now, I don't think we can talk about too much upside until we break above this trend, and then maybe we're talking about a full bounce like 12.5, 12.4. That's totally on the books if we start breaking out of this. But as of right now, we need to have realistic expectations of where we are. We are in a clear downtrend, and we're trending at previous lows. The end, that's where we're at right now. as we look at this, why are we bouncing on them? Are we bouncing because of good news? Are we bouncing because of good earnings? Are we bouncing because we think we're finally dealing with it? No, we're not. We're bouncing because other countries are panicking. They're selling our currency to prop up their own currency and prop up their own market. That's what we're doing right now. That's the reality of what is happening. So if we look at a long-term spectrum, if we look at, are we turning bullish? I think this has to answer your question. We have to look at, are we stopping the raising of rates? No, we actually talked about extending them today. Are we cutting rates? No, we're not going to cut those at least until 2024. Is the Fed changing their stance at all? No, it's actually getting worse. These are all things we're looking at, right? So I like to look at things from a very non-biased perspective, okay, as we look at this. So from a day trading perspective, I want to say, yeah, you could trade the upside, this, that, and the other. But again, I'm trying to break down the broad scale of the market and what's really happening, the news behind the scene, and what's really happening here. Look at flow. Qs. What's happening here? Heavily in favor of the downside today. This was actually like kind of shocking to me, but I want to say that a lot of this happened before lunch. Most of these very big orders came in before lunch. SPY, this was interesting as well. It was mixed, definitely mixed, not as bearish at all. Okay. I also want to highlight that this did happen last week as well. We saw Q puts come in heavy, then SPY followed the next day. So we'll be on the lookout for Monday and see what happens here. But overall, very interesting behavior as well. Things to look at as well, what's happening is you're seeing a lot of big bounces here. We saw Amazon, big bounce. AMD, Google, all these big stocks are all bouncing really strong. This makes sense with indexes, right? They're bouncing with indexes. Totally logical, makes sense. What's happening next week, people? What's happening next week? We know earnings season is still happening. Before I go any further, I want to give a special shout out to Hanka Trade. This is who I am currently using when I'm trading futures in the after hours or anything like that. You already know where I do my Bitcoin trading, and now this is where I do my future trading using Bitcoin as well. You can trade the NAS and the SPX basically 24/5 using their platform. And when you're looking at account types to be using, the one I'm using is going to be the ECN Plus. I'll explain why, because I'm going to be doing $1,000 challenge here on the channel, as well as most likely the new channel as well. So you can follow me along using the platform, learn how to use it as well if you're interested in using anything like this. And just so you know, they are also running a bonus, giving you a 100% deposit bonus on whatever you're using. You can always withdraw your initial deposit, but you need to look at the actual rules for depositing the 100% bonus when you are trading it, because there are certain rules that apply as well. But they have a lot of promotions going on, so I would definitely be checking them out right now, because this is how you can trade some of the futures that I'm talking about here in the video. What we're gonna do is go to earningwhisperers.com. I just jumped over here really quick and just show you for next week. We have Apple the 27th, Amazon the 27th, Microsoft the 25th, Meta the 26th, Google the 25th, AMD starting the beginning of November. We have a lot of earnings on the book coming, people. What does this mean? This could be wiped out in an instant, blink of an eye, okay? You need to understand that. So be prepared for ultimately where we're moving, right? Because those earnings, this is huge. Earningwhisperers.com, absolutely free, not sponsored by them, but it's free information so you can see. But yeah, that's what you need to be watching for. Zoom out, people. Stop commenting if you're looking at the 5-minute, people. Look at the overall range you're trading in, okay? So that's what I want to talk about. If we look here, I still think there's a little bit of upside, 11.5, possibly 11.6. I basically told Discord this morning. I was like, man, after this news came out, I was like, it's looking downhill, people. It is what it is. It looks like we're gonna get some upside. Dollar's extremely bearish, but it depends what happens going into next week. I don't know how long they're gonna be selling off the dollar. We don't know those answers right now, okay? We just know every other country, their economy is in shambles, similar to what ours most likely will be very soon. These will have rollover effects into us. If you think that it won't, then I think you're just blind and you're just ignoring the major issue. If we look at ES, again, you are trending at lows. If we go to the one-day chart, let's get rid of all this really quick just so you can see. You are trending at your 52-week lows, people. It is that simple. If we really look here, that's where we're at. The past week, we have not broke out of this. We have not been moving up yet. Now, we are getting close to there, so if we start to break out of this, we'll change the thesis. We'll look for upside in the short term, for swings. But right now, you have to understand what's happening. And the big factor here, someone commented on my tweet earlier and said earnings don't really matter, do they? No, earnings 100% matter. But if a country one of our allies at that, starts selling off all of our currency, it's going to affect the market, people. Again, I always say DXY is very, very important. And you can see right now what they're doing, how it's being affected, and how we're moving as a market as well. So I want to make that really clear so people can see what's happening. And if you want to see the last time this was happening and when we saw a major sell-off, remember, this is what happened back here. China, who knows when they stopped selling off, but this is what was happening. You were getting just slapped when China was selling off right there, right? It's worth mentioning. Make that a highlight. Make sure everyone knows that. That's when that was as well. So right here, overall DXY still holding some of these key levels, but I want to highlight that there is potential for a downside. And if you look at today, you tried to bounce. I was watching this in Discord as well, watching this while I was trading, but guess what? You got slapped right back down. So these are areas you need to be watching, things you need to be looking at, specifically going into Monday and preparing yourself, okay? Next thing I want to look at is going to be yields as well. And this is a really great way to look at the broad scale of the market, right? People were talking about this as well. Yields are doing something again. If we look back, yields should not be this high. This is a major issue. What's happening? You are higher than you were going all the way back to basically 2007. Okay. You have not been this high since 2007. You are now finding support at the 4% level on yields as well. That's terrible news. Looking at the 30-year yield, it continues to skyrocket. You have not been this high going all the way back to 2011. Okay. These are major issues. The inversion, you are not inverted right now. I want to highlight that as well. You are not inverted. If we look at the inflation inversion, this is the best way to look at the scale of inflation. You are not, and you're actually pulling back down to that resistance line on this. You've been holding this level all the way back for almost 2 years now. So you're actually pulling back a little bit here, but it's worth mentioning yields are still rising, right? The overall, right, inversion may be slimming. However, you're still rising, which is incredibly bearish and shows the significance of what is happening right now. Okay, these are all big things we're looking at, big causes of concern, major worrisome parts. VIX, even with this rally, what is VIX doing? I'll tell you, it's scaring the hell out of me. That's what that's what it's doing. If we look at what's happening here on the 1 hour chart on VIX, you are trending at 29 still. If we look back at every other type of recovery when we were facing this, you were dumping quick. All these were quick dumps back down. You are not here, people. You are slowly coming down. In my opinion, it's setting up for a volatile downside move. Again, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I don't want to be screaming bear from the rooftops. But again, and I'll make it very clear as well, I am not heavy into puts yet, right? I'm waiting for my signal. I'm waiting to see what the Fed says. I'm waiting for the nail in the coffin, right? There's no need to rush. Like I said in the previous videos, the goal is to survive this market and to make money while we're here. The goal is not to get rich during this market. You're getting the opportunity of the lifetime with long-term stocks. You're getting the opportunity of the lifetime setting back up into a bull market. Those are going to be awesome things, right? So the goal is not just lose all your money during this market, right? That's the goal here. And to set yourself up in your long-term account for your long-term investing. Make that really, really clear here, right? That's the big thing. But if we look at VIX, this is not telling me that this dip is done, right? If we go back to all these other ones, when you were getting a bounce back on the market, you dip. You're not, people. Today was your best bounce on the market, your best day of upside since going back to June, okay? Back in June, this is what was happening. You shot up and you came right back down. This was your best upside day since we've seen in early June, right? Make that known, mark it on your calendar, make sure you're looking at that. So overall, looking at the market, what am I looking at? Going into next week, I do see the potential for upside because I don't think that this DXY and the dollar selling is just going to stop. Maybe it does. I don't know. Am I looking to trade upside? No, I personally am not. This upside I'm looking at, I see, and I most likely see a test of 11.6 to 11.5, at least in this range. I had to go ahead and mark this up just because this is your local range of the highs. So I would be looking at that as well. But right now, you're in a resistance. If we look here, I don't see the potential for the upside unless you start really having good earnings. And good earnings are the only thing that could really justify an upside move. Why? Because it would show the strength of the consumer. And right now, if we look at earnings so far, the consumer looks pathetic. That's my opinion, and that's basically what the earnings are telling me. So going into Monday, again, I know I'm telling you stuff you don't want to hear. Again, the goal of the channel is not to get you to like the video and subscribe and tell me how much you love me. That's not the point of the video, people. The point of the channel and these videos are to educate and hopefully show people what's happening in the market and hopefully make an impact on your trading so you can use me as an indicator. Always do your own due diligence. This is not financial advice. I'll see you on Monday.